You guys seem to enjoy this format last week. We're going to do it exactly the same this week. We're going to go game by game and rank every running back and wide receiver to help you make flex spot decisions and also running back and wide receiver positional. Again, drop a like on the video if you enjoy, and make sure you subscribe. We're trying to hit 40K. You can help us do that. We appreciate you guys. Thanks for also the feedback so we can kind of give you what's most helpful to you. At this point, we are literally only in this to help you guys out. We are literally only posting videos because it helps you guys out. We're to the point in the season where a lot of people have checked out. So we appreciate you guys a ton. We're going to be here for you if you have any questions for us. Let's start with the Las Vegas and Denver Broncos matchup. It is a bad matchup for the Raiders. It is a bad matchup. The defense of the Denver Broncos is very good against wide receivers and against running backs here. And so we're starting with the running back position with Vegas. Ashton Jeanty obviously going to be a C tier. He's still going to be a start. It is a tough matchup for Jeanty. So you start him. We don't have Raheem Mostert ranked on here. From the wide receiver standpoint on Vegas, it is a tough matchup. The toughest matchup in the league against the Denver Broncos. And you also just had Jacoby Myers traded. You have Brock Bowers back. Trey Tucker's in the H tier. He's going to be a sit for us this week. Tyler Lockett, he's going to be a sit for us. We're not starting any of these guys. Jack Bech, we don't even have ranked. The rookies in that offense just disappeared, didn't they? Ashton Jeanty's still going to be a start, by the way. I remember him most as a sit. It's a tough matchup. Only Raider where we feel comfortable starting this week are Jeanty, and then, of course, Brock Bowers at tight end. Yeah. On the Denver side of the ball, a little bit more friendly matchup, right? J.K. Dobbins has been a little bit more hit or miss. I'm still going to say start for J.K. Dobbins because he is still getting the volume there, and so I think you still start him. RJ Harvey, we have him in the G tier. I still have him as a very shaky flex. I'm gonna go meh this week. I don't think that you do feel comfortable starting Harvey still. I don't think he's going to continue getting 5 touchdowns on 15 touches over a 2 weeks, man. Don't think it's happening. And so until we see the volume tick up for Harvey, I'm not comfortable saying, hey, definitely start him. That's just my gut. On the wide receiver position here, this is a great matchup for Courtland Sutton. He's going to be a start for us, and we've got him in the C tier this week. The Raiders are bad against wide receivers. Troy Franklin in the G tier, I'm also going to give a meh. I think there are worse starts than Troy Franklin in a week where this week, how many bye weeks do we have, Nate?
We only have a couple.
Yeah, so not as many this week, so you might not have to start Troy Franklin. But Troy Franklin does have some production this season in these types of situations. Again, this is going to be, it's just been hit or miss. But the last 3 games for Franklin, 12, 26, and 8 points. And his snap share has been a little bit higher. He's had 10, 8, and 10 targets in his last 3 games. I think he's a viable flex option if you need him, not feeling comfortable enough to say he's a must start, but it is a good matchup for him, and he has been somewhat productive recently.
The couple being the Bugles, Cowboys, and Chiefs, so that's probably like
90% of fantasy.
10 relevant fantasy assets.
Yeah,
so
it's a lot.
Yeah.
It's my whole flock league too.
Right, yeah. Next matchup we got is Atlanta and Indy going on in Germany this week. Hopefully the Colts don't look like they did last week, but
we got Sauce though.
We shall see. We do have Sauce. Bijan Robinson, S tier every single week, not starting Algier in the J tier behind him. This is a tough run defense with the Colts, and again, a refreshed secondary as well, which makes you a little bit concerned for like what Drake London's floor could be, but I will say, this is Sauce's first week in a brand new defensive system overseas. So I honestly don't know, like week 1 with Sauce Gardner might not be like the sexiest thing of all time for Sauce specifically.
Whoa, Sauce is going to ball out this week. What are you talking about?
Drake London is still going to be obviously a must start in the A tier, but because of the revamped secondary, I'm not comfortable starting Darnell Mooney. He hasn't really done anything this year at all. I mean, Darnell Mooney had a chance to be very productive in a game where Drake London didn't play this season. And he has been a shell of what he showcased last year with Kirk Cousins. It's just not been good. And I think a lot of it has been Kyle Pitts, Bijan Robinson being dominant, and Drake London, again, just being Drake London. But Mooney in the I tier will be a sit here. Flip side, Indy, we've got JT, S tier, start. Nobody else behind him is ranked. They're all sits. And with the wide receivers, Michael Pittman's the only guy that I'm super comfortable starting in this specific matchup. While I do like Alec Pierce and Josh Downs, heck, Alec Pierce was in my flex in the flock league, and he scored 17 points. Downs and Pierce this week are going to both be in the H tier because they do have a really, really tough matchup. The 6th least amount of points allowed to wide receivers with Atlanta secondary. So the reason I have both of them as mez is not because I don't think either of them are going to produce. I do think, and I am confident that one of them will produce. It's just a matter of who it's going to be. Pierce has been really, really solid. He's commanded a decent amount of target volume, honestly, very Shaheed-esque, boom bust, up and down. Josh Downs has had a productive 4 weeks between before and after his concussion against the Chargers. Some have been from touchdowns and not a ton of target volume. Some have been from a decent amount of target volume. Again, I think it's going to be kind of honestly a wait and see and a kind of a toss-up. If I had Downs and Alec Pierce on my fantasy team, I would be really, really struggling to figure out which one I wanted to start this week. But again, realistically with these buys, you probably are going to have to start one of them. So we're okay with you doing either one.
Mid-table handshake. Congratulations on the Colts winning the Super Bowl this year. Great year. Awesome. Love it. New Orleans versus Carolina. We'll go to this matchup now. Alvin Kamara's a yellow now. He's a meh. I'm not sure it gets better anytime soon.
Nope.
It's not. It's a fine matchup. They're middle of the road. Carolina Panthers are against. So we're gonna have him in the G tier. You just don't feel comfortable. He's meh. Everybody else in the G tier is meh. So Alvin Kamara's meh. You do not feel good starting this guy right now.
Yeah.
It's just not good. Obviously he had a rough game in his last game, but again, middle of the road matchup against Carolina. So it's not the matchup. It's more just Alvin Kamara has not been productive there, and we don't know. The first game with Tyler Shuck was rough for Kamara. Devin Neal sit in the K tier on the wide receiver position here. I keep saying on the wide receiver position. For the wide receiver position. Jeez, Avery, have freaking correct grammar. Chris Olave in the D tier. This is a tough matchup, but Chris Olave is Mr. Steady, right? So you're not leaving him out of your lineup. You can't do that. He's in the D tier. Brandon Cooks as a sit in the J tier. Again, it is a tough matchup. Carolina has given up the 5th least amount of points to wide receivers in fantasy football, surprisingly enough. On the Carolina side of the ball, let's start with the running back position. Rico Dowdle, welcome to the A tier, my friend. Chuba's irrelevant. Chuba is a sit. Rico is a start. It is the A tier for Rico. It is the J tier for Chuba. Wow. I cannot say I saw this coming. I never, ever, ever saw. I thought Rico Dowdle was nothing. I thought Rico Dowdle was nothing in that offense. He's something, all right. He's a league winner is what he is. A true league winner at that. It's again, a neutral matchup for Carolina as well in terms of the opposing defense. And then for the wide receiver position, Ted McMillan, start in the D tier. I still think you continue to flex this guy. I think he's better than most of your flex options on here. Xavier Legette and Jalen Coker will have both in the K tier as sits this week. Again, another neutral matchup positionally against the New Orleans Saints. The Saints are middle of the road in terms of allowing points to running backs and wide receivers. And so again, in this matchup, Olave, Dowdle, Ted McMillan are must starts for us. Kamara is going to be shaky. If you have to start him, you do it. Otherwise, you're not feeling very good about starting Kamara anymore.
Then we got the Giants and Chicago. The running back room in New York is actually very interesting. I remember us saying that Singletary was going to get some work there. I did not expect that it was going to be a majority of the snap share. It was closer to a 50-50 split with the upper hand going to Singletary, but Tracy and Singletary effectively are in the same tier here until we see one of them kind of take over that opportunity to a higher level. But I think ultimately it's going to come down to who's going to find the end zone here. You had a really tough matchup for the Giants last week. This one's a little better against Chicago, who has kind of more of a bendy defense where you'll probably see a decent amount of points here for the Giants. If Tracy or Singletary can find the end zone, that one will be the one that ends up being the start. I've got both of them as mez because I can't tell you which one it's going to be when you see that even split across the board. With the wide receivers, it's a bit easier here. It's Wan'Dale Robinson, the only startable guy there in the D's tier. Classic Wan'Dale gets a lot of target volume, not a lot of yards, unless he pops one off for 50 and a touchdown, then he's guaranteed to have 20 points. Other than that, you're probably going to see like 12 to 15 from him. Darius Slayton behind him is going to be a sit. He's not consistent enough for us to be super comfortable going with him. Though this is a friendly matchup for the receivers in New York. They've allowed the second most amount of points to fantasy wide receivers this season. Chicago has. Chicago's running backs, interesting conversation to have with Mungai and Swift. Obviously, if Swift is healthy and a full go, then you're going to want to be starting him for sure in the C tier. Basically, just take out Swift and put Mungai in there if Swift doesn't play. Mungai was already getting some work before Swift went down with the injury. But again, I don't know if it's going to be. I would like to see how both of these guys look together now that Mungai played so well against Cincinnati. I do want to take that with a grain of salt. Though this is a really good matchup for Chicago's running backs. The run defense for New York this season has been very lackluster. They've allowed the second most amount of points to fantasy running backs. But we'll list Mungai as a sit for now because I'm really worried about what they're going to look like together. But he's a absolute must start if DeAndre Swift is hurt. Chicago's wide receivers, it's Rome Odunze and then DJ Moore and then Olamide Zaccheaus. If Luther Burden misses more time, then you're looking at Zaccheaus being the third guy there. I don't think he's going to replicate what he did again against Cincinnati's defense last week. Still as a solid matchup for these guys, though. I think Rome Odunze will be able to bounce back in what was kind of just, in my opinion, a fluky week where DJ Moore and Zaccheaus got some good work. B tier for Rome Odunze, he's going to be a start. DJ Moore, I'm going to list as a meh as well. DJ Moore, the last couple of weeks, has been fine. He salvaged his day against Baltimore with a garbage time 40-yard reception that resulted in him getting 11 points and then 22 points against Cincinnati, which was nice to see. Again, it's against Cincinnati, but this is a solid matchup against the Giants secondary. So we'll see if he can kind of replicate it. If you have to start him because of the bye weeks, I'm all right with it this week.
All right, moving to the Jacksonville-Houston game. On the Jacksonville side of the ball, starting with the running backs here, Travis Etienne, start, toot, and sit. Travis Etienne we're going to have in the D tier, as well as his wide receiver counterpart, the wide receiver one in Jacksonville still, Brian Thomas Jr. in the D tier. Now again, Bashal Tootin is a sit for us in the J tier. In terms of the second string and third string wide receivers here, this week I would have told you to start Parker Washington. But they made a move and they traded for Jacoby Myers at the deadline. Yeah. And truthfully, I don't know how that wide receiver 2 work is going to be split up. I don't think Parker Washington's irrelevant, but we do have Jacoby Myers ranked higher than Parker Washington in the H tier and Parker Washington in the I tier. And I'm going to have them both as mez. I think one of them is a starter here. I think if you are going to start one of them, I lean Jacoby Myers because they did just trade for them. Yeah. For him, but I just don't. I'm not.
This one's a tough matchup too.
It's a tough matchup. The Texans have allowed the third least amount of points to wide receivers, and I just don't know how the split's going to be. And so I'm just not. I just don't feel comfortable. I've got both these guys as mess this week. On the Houston side of the ball, neutral matchups for both the running backs and the wide receivers here. Woody Marks we're going to have as a meh. Marks has just been hit or miss. When there is a fantasy productive back there, it's Woody Marks. But he had 12 and 15 in week 7 and 8, and then in week 9 he only had 2 against Denver. Denver obviously being a very tough matchup. But for Marks this week, again, it's more of a neutral matchup. The 8th least amount of points to running back. Actually, Jaguars have been decent against running backs. And so Nick Chubb continues to get some volume there. The problem is, again, even though they're splitting like carries, the productive one is always Marks. So Marks is going to be a meh for us in the H tier. Chubb is going to be a sit for us in the I tier. For the wide receivers in this offense, Nico, B tier, start. Neutral matchup for Nico. He's got a yellow lights across the board for these wide receivers. Christian Kirk, I tier, sit. There's not much more to it than that. That wide receiver role tends to kind of rotate between guys. Noel will get some production. Higgins will get some production. Kirk will get some production. Xavier Hutchinson will get some production. And then outside of that, I mean, it's really just the guy you feel comfortable starting every week is Nico. By the way, I'm not worried about Nico in the sense that he looked pretty good with Davis Mills as well last week. So regardless of what the quarterback situation looks there, I do think he's a start for us. And again, we do have him in the B tier for that reason.
Buffalo and Miami is going to be a really easy one in terms of starts and sits. James Cook, S tier. He's a start against one of the worst run defenses in the NFL. Ty Johnson and Ray Davis in the K tier of their sits. Khalil Shakir, G tier. I will still list him as a start, even though this is a tougher matchup. Miami's pass defense has been a lot more stout of recent. But again, Shakir has been the most reliable receiving asset in that offense. He does have a pretty high floor. Keon Coleman, J tier, he's a sit. Devon Achane from Miami is going to be in the A tier this week in what is a solid matchup for him against Buffalo's run defense, which is bottom 10 in the NFL. Ollie Gordon, J tier, sit. Jalen Waddle, B tier, must start. Nobody else behind him is a start. Malik Washington's the only guy that's rankable in the I tier. So literally 4 guys here. James Cook, Shakir, Devon Achane, and Waddle. They're all number ones at their respective positions for both of these offenses. You start all of them, you sit everyone else.
Baltimore, Minnesota here. We'll start with Derrick Henry. Still in the B tier. Still going to be a start for us, even though we think he's generally a sell right now based on where he's being ranked. We do have him as a start in the B tier for us. And a neutral matchup, again, yellow light for the matchup for Derrick Henry this week. And then Justice Hill we're going to have as a sit in the K tier. For the wide receivers in this offense, Zay Flowers will have as a C tier start here. Again, neutral matchup again for these. So lots of neutrals here. We got good matchups on the Minnesota side of the ball, though, with this bad Baltimore defense. Rashad Bateman, K tier. I'm going to just say... I'm gonna say sit. He's K tier. I'm sitting everybody else in the K tier for the most part. There's a world where I have to start him in the Flock League this week, actually, so that freaking blows. My whole team's gone. Minnesota, however, has good matchups for the running backs and wide receivers on the running back side of the ball. Baltimore has allowed the 4th most amount of points for running backs this year. Aaron Jones, for me, is a start this week, even though he's in the F tier. I would definitely say Aaron Jones is somebody that I'm comfortable starting. Jordan Mason, I'm sitting. I'm not starting Jordan Mason. He's in the H tier for us. For wide receivers, again, the 6th most amount of points to wide receivers the Baltimore Ravens have allowed so far this year. So Justin Jefferson in the A tier. I'm going to say, of course, start. Jordan Addison as well. This is a good matchup for him. F tier.
Hopefully,
I'm gonna say start.
Hopefully, this is Baltimore's old defense in this matchup because it's getting better every week.
Couple weeks. So
yeah.
So I'm gonna say start for Jordan Addison. I'm gonna say start for Jefferson as well. So again, this matchup, the Vegas lights for this matchup are green for the Ravens, yellow in terms of total implied points from Minnesota. But I think if the Ravens start scoring, they're gonna end up passing the ball, which I think it'll be a positive game script for these wide receivers in this offense, which is why I'm starting both Vikings Vikings wide receivers.
I don't know about you guys, but while all you bozos are watching actual exciting games, I'm going to be watching Cleveland and the Jets. Quinshawn is going to be in the A tier here in what is a really nice green light matchup for him. Expect him to have one of his bigger weeks. Again, very low floor when he doesn't score touchdowns and stuff, but this is one where the Jets just blew up their entire defense. So I think you're going to have a good day with Judkins. Behind him, Dylan Sampson, K tier, sit him. The wide receivers here for Cleveland, guess what? Wide receiver 1 and 2 in this offense are not Jerry Jeudy and Tillman. It's Harold Fannin and David Njoku. So I tier for Jeudy, J tier for Tillman. I'm sitting both of them. Even with Sauce not being there, I think if anybody's going to be super productive there, it's going to continue to be Fannin and Njoku. On the other side, you got the Jets with Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson, the only guys left on that team. Breece Hall in the D's tier in like the toughest run defense in the NFL. The Cleveland's allowed the least amount of points to fantasy running backs this season, but it's Breece Hall. He can pop one off any given week, and they kept him. They didn't trade him away, so he's still stuck there. And I think at this point they're probably just going to want to give the ball to their stars on the offense, and that is Breece Hall and Garrett Wilson. Isaiah Davis behind is going to be a sit in the K tier. I think it was kind of fluky, the production that he had before the bye week. Garrett Wilson, C tier, going to be a start in what is a nicer matchup for him. It's more neutral. Their pass defense in Cleveland is not nearly as good as their run defense, so hopefully we can have a solid day from Garrett Wilson in the C tier. A.D. Mitchell, the new guy, welcome to the Jets. A.D. Mitchell, bye-bye from the Colts. I hope you fumble more balls at the goal line, but he's going to be in the K tier here. There's no relevant fantasy wide receiver beyond Garrett Wilson in this offense.
All right, the New England-Tampa Bay game. We'll start with the New England side of the ball. You're wondering about the running backs here. Henderson had 12 points last week, did get the majority of the work, but he's going to be F tier, and Terrell Jennings is going to be J tier. Both these guys got work. Both of them produced to some extent last week. I just don't feel super comfortable starting either of them, and I'm going to say mez for both of them in the F and the J tier respectively for these guys in a yellow matchup, neutral matchup for these running backs. For the wide receivers, another neutral matchup. I'll say start Stephon Diggs in the F tier, and I'm going to say sit for Demario Douglas in the I tier. On the Tampa Bay side of the ball, I'm going to just, as of right now, recording this video Wednesday at 11:15 a.m., Bucky Irving was not in line to practice, and so I actually think Rachaad White is going to end up being the starter again there this week. Rachaad White, I will say start, but he's going to be like C or D tier, depending on where we decide to rank him. Haven't adjusted our rankings because we're doing this mid-video, but we'll put him in the tier list. You'll see if he's C or D tier. He is going to be a start for us. Sean Tucker will be a sit. We'll probably put him in a lower tier. And then, and it is a bad matchup, by the way, for Rachaad White. New England's allowed the third least amount of points, and so that's why Rachaad White, even though he's going to be the starter there in a good offense, is going to be C or D tier. They do have a green Vegas light, which means that the Vegas does expect him to score a lot of points, which could be a positive thing. All that kind of cancels out, and Rachaad White does become a guy you start this week. For the wide receivers, Emeka Egbuka, we have in the B tier. He's a must start for us this week, but Johnson and Sterling Shepard in the G and K tier in a neutral matchup for these wide receivers. We are not going to start them, so only starting Egbuka in the wide receivers for Tampa Bay this week in a game where, again, we could end up seeing some high scoring points in this game.
Arizona and Seattle should be a fun one to watch. I think the biggest question mark is Benson going to be back? We've gotten zero update, zero indication that he will be back. We've gotten zero indication that he won't be back. So if he plays, if he's activated this week, then he's still only going to be in the F tier because we haven't seen what his workload is going to look like, if it's going to be a split between him and DeMarcado or somebody else in that offense. I'm going to have him as a meh in the F tier. And again, this is assuming that he plays, then DeMarcado would be a sit in the J tier. If Benson does not play, then I'm okay with you starting DeMarcado. I would list him more as a meh because he did have 14 carries against Dallas, did get the most touches in that offense, even though he didn't get the most snap share. That being said, he looked the most explosive. Arizona said they're going to run with the hot hand there in the backfield, and right now the hot hand is Amari DeMarcado. So I would expect that workload to probably remain the same in this matchup against Seattle if Trey Benson does not play. Marvin Harrison is going to be a start in the D's tier. This is a very, very tough matchup. So while you had a very friendly one for Marv against Dallas, you've got red lights across the board for Marv this week against Seattle. We'll see what happens. He's number one there. Jacoby Brissett is definitely an upgrade, in our opinion, from Kyler Murray. They're seeming to want to feed Marvin Harrison more, which why would you ever want to do that, right? Michael Wilson, not going to be rankable here. He's a sit. Now you got the running backs for Seattle. I'm going to list Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet both as mez. Do I feel good about starting either one? No. We always say, who's going to score the touchdown? That's going to be the guy that produces. Well, what if both of them don't score touchdowns? Then neither of them are startable. They're both going to be in the G tier here. JSN, S tier, starting every single week. Rashid Shaheed, now the newest member for Seattle. This is a perfect pairing for Rashid Shaheed, which, by the way, Clint Kubiak was the OC see for New Orleans last season before Shaheed went down with the injury. And if you remember what Shaheed did before he tore his ACL, that was like the best version of Shaheed that we've seen on a consistent basis than we've ever seen. So I'm going to list Shaheed as a meh this week, and he may be a must start from here on out if Kubiak utilizes him like he did before the injury last season. Torrey Horton, unfortunately, all the flashes that he's shown this year seem to be worthless now because Shaheed is now in that offense. He'll be in the J tier as a sit and probably not rankable from here on out.
All right, neutral matchups for the Los Angeles Rams against San Francisco, but green Vegas light. Vegas expects them to score a lot of points in this game. So for that reason, Kyren, Puka, and Devontae Adams all starts for us this week. Kyren and Devontae Adams will have both in the B tier. They're must starts, of course, and Puka Nacua in the S tier is going to be must start as well. I haven't seen any practice reports on Puka Nacua, and my guess is I won't at this point because it's not early enough. He's going for a scan on his rib. Was the last time we heard it was 2 days ago. It depends on if he plays or not. Obviously, Devontae Adams is a start either way. In terms of the San Francisco 49ers, bad matchup for Christian McCaffrey, but he's still the S tier because he's Christian McCaffrey. So Brian Robinson, J tier, he's a sit for us, of course, even though he did have a touchdown last week. It is the toughest running back matchup in the league is the Los Angeles Rams. And so it's obviously going to be tougher sledding for McCaffrey, but he's still going to probably score 25 points because he's a receiver. Juwan Jennings, I will have Juwan Jennings as a start this week in the G tier. It's not a bad matchup for Jennings. It's been mostly hit or miss with the wide receivers in that offense, but Jennings, for example, last week had 14 points. He's had 7, 8, and 14. I think he's flex level floor, right now, and especially if you need a plug in for the bye week. So I'm going to say you can start him in the G tier. Kendrick Bourne in the H tier. I tried starting Kendrick Bourne in the Flock League last week. It did not turn out well for me. It's a neutral matchup. It's exactly middle of the road for the secondary for Los Angeles, and so that's why we'll just have Jennings as a start. But again, we're starting all the ones in this matchup, and then of course Devontae Adams, who is essentially a one in his own right.
Detroit going up against Washington. Every single one of these guys, Gibbs, Amon-Ra, Monty, and J-Mo, I'm going to be comfortable with you starting this week because of what Darnold did against this defense last week, and now they don't have Jaden Daniels. The reason being, again, let's just walk it down from the guys that we have to start for sure to the guys that are more questionable. Amon-Ra and Jahmyr Gibbs are S and A tier respectively this week. You start them every single week. They're phenomenal. This is a great matchup. J-Mo has obviously big play, explosive upside. You saw that plenty of times on display in the Seattle matchup with Washington last week. I think J-Mo has an opportunity to pull that off again in the first half of this game. Once you get to the second half, when we assume that Detroit's going to run away with this, what do? They generally just run out the time. They run out the clock with their bruiser running back in David Montgomery. So he'll probably get a decent amount of touches in the second half. Then with Washington, it's just really, really ugly there. I'm not starting Ja'Cory Crossy-Merritt. He's unstartable. Jeremy McNichols, unstartable. I and J tier for both of those guys. No running back there we're super comfortable with. You never know who's going to get the touchdown there, who's going to have a big play. If any of them will have big plays, Chris Rodriguez, sometimes it's him and he gets the least amount of snap share. It's just a total toss-up there. Crossy-Merritt really hasn't come on like we expected him to. Deebo Samuel we will list as a start because he is literally the last man standing there. I understand his floor is a lot lower. He does still have a high ceiling. He'll be in the D tier as a start. Chris Moore behind him, not even rankable. He's a sit.
All right, going to the Pittsburgh Chargers game here. Jaylen Warren will have in the B tier. He's a start for us this week. He had 16 or 17 last week in a game where he actually looked pretty inefficient by his standards this year, but he scored the touchdowns, and that's really what he has touchdown upside every single week. And so we'll start him in the B tier. Kenneth Gainwell in the J tier is going to be a not start. It's a neutral matchup for the running backs here. It is a very tough matchup for DK Metcalf and the wide receivers this week. DK is going to get bumped down to the F tier, but I am going to still say to start him. I think you have to start him. I don't think you can necessarily leave him on your bench right now, even though his last couple games, 19, 8, 16, 2. He's so hit or miss. He's not consistent, and the volume has not been good there. In the games where he's not scoring touchdowns this year, 12, 8, and 2 points. And so you're really talking about touchdown or bust for DK at the current moment. Calvin Austin, the I tier, is going to be a sit for us. Again, is a tough matchup for those receivers. For the Los Angeles Chargers here, Kamani Vidal, also F tier, also a start. You got to do it because of the guaranteed volume. Jarrett Patterson in the I tier, he's going to be a sit for us as well. Neutral matchup for these guys. A good matchup, though, for the wide receivers in the Los Angeles Chargers offense. Ladd McConkey we're going to have in the B tier, and so he's going to be a start. Quentin Johnson in the D tier is also going to be a start, and Keenan Allen in the F tier I will also put, as you guessed it, a start. We're going to continue to start all three of these guys until, 2 out of 3 of them, you have a 67% chance every week that your guy's going to produce. That's how it works in this offense. And so basically, you have to start all of them. The odds are very good that they're going to produce. The odd man out, whoever it is that week, is going to lay an egg, and that kind of sucks, but it's just how it is. It was Ladd last week who had 9 points. The other guys were okay. This week it might be Keenan or it might be QJ. Who knows? But it's a good matchup for Los Angeles. Pittsburgh has allowed the third most amount of points to wide receivers in fantasy football this year. And so we are going to start all 3 of these wide receivers again. Last matchup.
YouTube TV better figure their crap
I'm
out
done
so we
with
can
it,
actually
dude.
watch this Monday night game.
And it's hold on. Don't just blame YouTube TV. It's ESPN's stupid butt.
Yeah,
it is ESPN.
you're correct.
We're mad at ESPN.
It's ABC. We're mad at ABC.
I'm mad at. I just don't like ESPN. ESPN can ligma. I'm just saying, like ESPN can ligma. Okay.
Philly and Green Bay. We got Saquon as the number 1 running back for Philly. A tier. It is a tougher matchup. Green Bay's run defense is very stout, but you just saw Rico Dowdle drop 28 actually on Green Bay's head last week. I think Saquon is capable of doing the same thing. Tank Bigsby, J tier, sit. A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith both going to be in the C tier. Their production outlook this season has been about the same. I think they deserve both to be in the same tier most weeks. And in a secondary, that's more of a neutral matchup for these guys. When you're looking at Green Bay's secondary, I think A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are both comfortable starts, as they are every single week, with admittedly lower floors, but they're must starts all the time because of their upside. Green Bay, you got Josh Jacobs, A tier, right there by Saquon Barkley in the same tier. He's going to be a must start. Emmanuel Wilson, K tier, sit. Romeo Doubs, the only wide receiver that we're comfortable starting. He's been the most consistent and have been getting the highest amount of target volume on a weekly basis over the last month for Green Bay. He'll be in the F tier. He's not a super safe flex option, but he's a flex option nonetheless that you're probably going to have to put in your lineup because of all the buys this week, all the fantasy relevant buys this week. Christian Watson, Matthew Golden, we're not comfortable enough with starting. They'll both be listed as sits.
Again, we hope you enjoyed this video. We hope you enjoy this format. Make sure you drop a like, make sure you subscribe, and make sure you go win your fantasy football leagues this week. Good luck. We'll see you here next week. Peace out. See you later.